心大的圣经，为四法为记一切众生，金转妙法轮，教导我们如何了想多自利故德，速证无上。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadando sujedoye alahadi samyao sambuddhoje.
Namo saranto sujedoye alahadi samyao sambuddhosye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Okay, welcome everyone to our evening sutra lecture. Today is January 28th, 2017, is the first, I think the first of the Lunar New Year. The year of the rooster. And so we welcome everyone to the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, coming out on the Lunar New Year for a Dharma lecture, a Dharma Sutra lecture. That's very wonderful indeed. To begin, we were thinking of reciting the name of the assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas associated with the Amitabha Sutras. It's on your cover of your collected pieces of paper. It says Namo Lian Shi Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Do you want to recite it? 3次然后念佛吗？还是怎么样？就是念Namo Lian Shi Hai Hui.
Lian Shi Hai Hui Fo Pusa. 我们可以念7次哈。
Okay, so we recite Namo Lian Shi Hai Hui Fo Pusa 7 times.
好，我想我用中文先讲一下。
可以。
今天是元月28号，国历，那农历是大年初一。今天我们在伯克利这边一起来研究无量寿经，所以等一下我们就会先念7遍的莲池海会佛菩萨，7遍这样子。好。
So, if everyone can see the cover page, I think online you probably have that text available as well on the link. So it's just the front cover. Namo Lian Shi Hai Hui Fo Pusa. What it means, it says, homage to the ocean-wide lotus pool assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Okay?
没有眼睛。
没关系，我就读明白。
好 ，OK。
南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨，南无莲池海会佛菩萨。
请方丈，我们还是一样的，我们来先念一下经文。我们先念中文，我们念到第一页，把它念完，从头我文字是开始念到上周所有。
So you have your sutra text. We'll begin by reading the sutra text in Chinese and English as usual. It begins with 我闻如是, or thus I have heard. 我们一起念吧。
一起念好了呀。念完以后再念英文。好，大家一起念。我闻如是，一时佛住王首城，其手结山中，以大比丘众，断2000人计，一切大圣，神通已达。其名曰尊者了本纪，尊者正愿，尊者正仪，尊者大好，尊者仁贤，尊者离垢，尊者明文，尊者善食，尊者具足，尊者牛王，尊者优罗频罗解受，尊者解迦受，尊者拿提迦摄，尊者摩诃迦摄，尊者舍利佛，尊者大目犍连，尊者戒宾那，尊者大住，尊者大净智，尊者摩诃遮那，尊者满愿子，尊者离障，尊者流贯，尊者坚福，尊者面王，尊者义成，尊者人性，尊者家乐，尊者善来，尊者柔淫，尊者阿难，真实如斯等上首者也。好，英文。
Okay, read the English together. Thus I have heard, at one time the Buddha was staying in Vulture Peak Mountain, in the capital city of Magadha, together with 12,000 great bhikshus. All were great sages who had already attained spiritual powers. Their names are Venerable Realizing the Ultimate Origin, Venerable Right Vows, Venerable Right Speech, Venerable Great Name, Venerable Benevolent Goodness, Venerable Free of Defilement, Venerable Renown, Venerable Reliable Goodness, Venerable Completeness, Venerable Lord of Cow, Venerable Ubilva Kashyapena, Venerable Gaya Kashyapa, Venerable Nadi Kashyapa, Venerable Maha Kashyapa, Venerable Shariputra, Venerable Mahamaggalayana, Venerable Kapina, Venerable Great Existing, Venerable Great Pure Aspiration, Venerable Mahachunda, Venerable Son of Complete in Vows, Venerable Free of Obstruction, Venerable River, Venerable Mighty Conqueror, Venerable King of Perfect Appearance, Venerable Extraordinary Vehicle, Venerable Kind-Hearted, Venerable Joy and Happiness, Venerable Welcome, Venerable Rahula, and Venerable Ananda. All of them were leaders among the assembly.
Uh, 我知道上次我们Jin-Chuan师跟净和师有讲完了舍利弗尊者，那我们今天会继续我们来讲目犍连尊者。
So last time we spoke on the Limitless Life Sutra. Jin-He and myself spoke about the life story of Venerable Shariputra. And so today we were thinking of introducing Venerable Mahamaggalayana, the next one on the list. So what we've been doing is going over the disciples who are being listed here in the beginning of the sutra. And so just to give people some context, I think the interesting part about doing this is got many layers to it. One is, I think, at least for myself, I don't really know these people, right? I never met Venerable Mahamaggalayana or Venerable Shariputra, at least in my memory. And so we might not know who these people are. And what was very rich when we read the sutra is if you just kind of imagine yourself there, right? You're in the sutra text yourself, and you can imagine Venerable Shariputra over there in the corner, Venerable Mahamaggalayana over there, and you can kind of imagine what the atmosphere would be like. But if it's just a bunch of names, it doesn't hold much meaning for us. So if we kind of know the people in the sutra, know the great disciples, then as we read their names in the sutra, we can a little bit call forth the experience of being in the assembly. So it's actually a very good thing to be familiar with these disciples. Just like today, we have, I won't list out people's names, but people know, person over there, parents of this person, people who always come to record, right? So there's a kind of a sense, who's in the audience, who's here. And so here we're just trying to introduce to everyone, person by person, but not just do a kind of a cursory job, but really go in depth. So you get a chance to see who each person is. As we mentioned last time we talked about Shariputra, Venerable Shariputra, the Buddha actually said that Venerable Shariputra and Venerable Mahamaggalayana are the role models for bhikshus. So at least for Jin-Fo and myself, they're the exemplars. Right? They're the ones that we're supposed to look to for our how we're supposed to be bhikshus. So, okay.
Yeah. 在讲这个进入讲目犍连尊者以前，我想今天因为是大年初一，大年初一我们大年初一是弥勒佛圣诞，这个弥勒佛尊者圣诞，然后圣辰也会做那个护国救灾的这个法会。那我们今天我们这边我们也做了6日大明咒的这个法会，这个是过年大家很高兴能够有机会来庙上来一起庆祝我们今年金鸡年的过年，这个是非常殊胜的。
So, before we start the sutra lecture, because today is a very special day, today is the Lunar New Year, I wanted to talk a little bit about Maitreya Bodhisattva, because today's also Maitreya Bodhisattva's birthday. At the City 10,000 Buddhas, there was a Dharma assembly to recite for the well-being of the nation. And here in Berkeley, we also had a Dharma assembly reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, the 6-syllable bright mantra. And so today is a very auspicious day, very wonderful that people came and participated in the Dharma assembly. I actually think I got a number that we had 260 people sign in. So probably over 300 people came for lunch. A lot of people didn't sign in. So a lot of people came today.
像这个弥勒佛大家都可以很多地方看到。这个不只是我们佛教，我们其他的宗教，像学校或者是其他机关或者其他的包括其他的宗教，他们都非常喜欢这个弥勒佛，因为他笑口常开，他可以说一脸到头都是在笑，然后他顶着大肚子，这个肚子，这个就是一个能够容忍的所有的困难的这个，所以这个大肚能容天下难容的事情，所以他这个这个是一个象征，而且他还拿着念珠，拿着念珠，就是还有他还有今天特别的，就是说他手上还捧着这个这个算钱宝，那我们学佛人就是要讲法财，法财这个是很好的，捧着我们这个法财给大家这样子。
So Maitreya Bodhisattva will be the future Buddha, and his image is very, very popular. You'll see it in many places, not just in Buddhist monasteries, but you often see it in schools, in offices, and even other religious groups have Maitreya Bodhisattva around because they really like his happy face, his always kind of wide smile, his broad smile. It is kind of very joyful. And he has a big tummy, a big stomach, and so his big stomach represents his ability to be patient with everything that happens. No matter what happens, he can take it, no problem. And so you see him also in this image here, on the table here. He has he's holding recitation beads, and he also has a is that a gold kind of what do you call it? A gold what do you call it? Bullion? It's like you say a jewel, but it's almost like a treasure. It's essentially, I think they make gold, like gold bars, but I think in Chinese culture they make gold bars that look like that. And so he's holding a kind of like a gold bar, a gold treasure. And this is very appropriate for the Lunar New Year because many people want to get wealthy. They come to the monastery hoping for wealth. But here I think we're all want to cultivate, and so we're not looking for, you could say, wealth in that sense. We're looking for Dharma wealth. That's why people came for the sutra lectures, that you can get some, the treasure of the Dharma, which is far more precious.
好我们不再讲弥勒菩萨，我们讲大目犍连尊者。大目犍连他的翻译其实他是叫做彩椒氏，他的这个翻译出来的是彩椒氏，他的本名是居利头，居利头他是一个树的名字，他父母亲向这个居利头树求这个儿子，所以得到这个居利头的名字。
So Venerable Mahamaggaliyana, he's actually was born to a Brahmin family, and his name was named Kolita. Kolita is actually a name of a tree in India, and what happened was his parents, hoping for a child, prayed to a tree spirit. The tree was a Kolita tree, and so after he was born, they named him after the tree Kolita.
我们经典上也都可以了解到，他跟舍利佛两个是同学，就是常常互相学习，然后他们有约定说，那时候还没有进入这个皈依佛陀的时候，他们是在外道算外面修行的，然后就两个约定说，谁是可以见到善知识，那就两个就互相的通报，然后就一起来共同精进修行。
So Venerable Shariputra was his good friend. They actually grew up together and became, you could say, ascetics together and cultivated under other spiritual teachers. They studied under a spiritual teacher, I think we talked about last time, named Sanjaya. And so they practiced with him for a while. Then one day they decided that this was not an ultimate path, so they were looking for, you could say, the answer to their questions. So they made a deal with one another. They made a pact saying whoever can find the way first would come and tell the other person. So they made a pact with each other saying whoever finds the way first, you come back and tell the other person.
所以首先舍利弗他就碰见佛陀，然后就进入僧团。所以后面他也告诉目犍连尊者，所以他们两个就都皈依佛陀，然后就带了个人的弟子，过100人以上的去佛陀那里皈依佛陀，所以就以后就常常在佛陀的常随众，就是在佛陀的去到哪里就跟着哪里，这个常随众。
So what happened was Shariputra met a disciple of the Buddha, like we talked about last time, and later, and then went to tell Venerable Mahamoggaliyana about his discovery. And so they both went to see the Buddha, each bringing over 100 disciples each. So there they met the Buddha and cultivated under him.
目犍连他非常孝顺在家的时候，所以他因为那时候他妈妈还没有信佛，所以他就常常杀生吃鱼子这样子的，所以就他后来他知道他往生以后一定会下地狱这样子，所以他后来修行，他正果以后，他第一个要见的就是去到地狱里面去看他妈妈。
So Venerable Mahamoggaliyana, he was very filial. People know this in the Ulambana Sutra, where Venerable Mahamoggaliyana, he was meditating, cultivating, and then he attained the 6 spiritual powers. He attained, you could say, attained the way. And the first thing he did was go look for his mother. Well, his mother, in her life, didn't really believe in the Buddha, and so ate took many lives because she liked to eat meat, and particularly she liked to eat fish eggs. So by taking so much life, when she died, she actually went to the hell, and so it wasn't a great deal of suffering. So Venerable Mahamoggaliyana, after he woke up, he went to look, where did my mom go?
所以他就依照这个经典，就是说他捧着一个饭，然后去给他妈妈吃，但是给他妈妈以后他发觉他妈妈不能吃，因为恶鬼里面有业障，他没有办法，然后就又妈妈不能吃以后，他就回到佛陀那里请教他，然后佛陀就跟他讲说，用所有僧团的力量来给他妈妈 能够用饭，所以我们就有盂兰盆会，每年的7月15，所以变成说这个非常在我们佛教或者其他的宗教都是7月15都是来做孝顺父母的节日。
So Venerable Mahamagayana found his mom suffering as a hungry ghost in the hells. So he saw her starving, and so he got a bowl of rice to offer his mother. Now the realm of the hungry ghost is that it's really difficult for them to eat. And so when she got the food, she couldn't eat it. When she put it in her mouth, it became like flaming coals. And so she suffered a great deal. So Venerable Mahamagayana was greatly, you could say, sorrowful. He was saddened to see this condition. And he was unable to do anything about it. So he went to ask the Buddha, what could he do? What could be done? And the Buddha said, this isn't something you yourself can take care of. What's necessary is the combined strength of the Sangha. And so they have this opportunity to, so what they had, they set up these basins. They call it, so they became the Ulambana ceremony, or the Ulambana Day, which is on July 15th. And it's the day that people can, or you can make offerings, and the merit of the combined Sangha is transferred to the well-being of one's parents. So for Venerable Mahamagayana, he helped with that, and with the combined strength of the Sangha, used that to help his mother.
所以依照盂兰盆经，他妈妈升天，然后只要你孝顺父母，像我们现在的都可以7世父母都可以得到利益，都可以我们诚信的话，也都可以超度他们升天。所以这个是一直我们在这个佛教或者其他宗教，我们都非常重视这个节日的。
So in Asian culture, July 15th became a day of filiality in Buddhist religions, but also other religions as well. And so what happens is from Venerable Mahamagayana's mother, after receiving the spiritual support of the Sangha, was reborn in the heavens. And in the sutras, it describes that not just your parents of this life can gain benefit, but your parents from 7 generations past all can receive benefit from this act of giving. And so this practice of making offerings during Ulambana became part of Asian culture, especially the practice of filiality.
我们知道他目犍连他是神通第一，所以在佛陀要去天上讲法的时候，就是讲地藏经的时候，就有发生这个恶龙，就是这个龙来阻挡佛陀去讲法，然后后来目犍连也显了神通，显大的小的跟他变化，然后这个恶龙就把他降服，他怕了就降服，所以算释迦牟尼佛他就顺利去讲完这个法。
Okay, so this story is about Venerable Mahamagayana's spiritual powers. People know Venerable Mahamagayana is foremost in spiritual powers. Right? People know he's number one. The Buddha has different disciples. Venerable Shariputra is number one in wisdom. Venerable Mahamagayana is number one in spiritual powers. So I'll tell the story a little bit more detailed, because I actually looked it up as well. So what happened in this story is Buddha, before going to speak the Earth Store Sutra, was going to go to speak in I believe the Tramshimsha heaven to his mother, the Buddha's mother. And before going there was this very powerful poisonous dragon that tried to prevent the Buddha from doing this. And it looked like he spit some kind of poisonous sand at the Buddha. And then Venerable Mahamagdhyana kind of dispelled that, making it all to like dust. And then the dragon, grew huge, like a huge, huge shape. Like they described, like wrapped around Mount Sumeru a couple of times. And then Venerable Mahamagdhyana became even bigger, even bigger dragon, wrapping around Mount Sumeru like 7 times. Okay, so you can just imagine. It's kind of like what's that movie? Where was there was those 2 wizards fighting with this? King Arthur. You know that cartoon, King Arthur, where there's the wizard and then this kind of witch. They were fighting with each other. I don't know if people remember that cartoon, but I remember that. So they were fighting with the different kinds of beings, and then finally Venerable Mahamagdhyana became a small insect and went into the dragon's skin and then started biting him. And that's actually one of the worst things about being a dragon. So you think a dragon is really fun to be, you're very powerful, but actually they describe that the dragons have a very miserable life because they have little bugs crawling in their scales. And so it's very itchy. So who would think you're a dragon and it's very itchy? So he gives up. So the Venerable Mahamagdhyana subdues the dragon. So yeah, so that's the story.
刚才金传师他讲的更详细，就是说变大的时候，舍利弗他变得更大；他小的时候，他变成小小的去咬这个恶龙的这个。所以就变成把他降服了，把他吓坏了，所以这个是一个历史公案。还有一个就是比较有名的，就是当琉璃王那时候，琉璃王他要灭这个苏家子的时候，他很慈悲的，他说：“哇，这样子来。”琉璃王他要杀所有的释迦族，他就赶快把释迦族500个人，他赶快装到他的钵里面，他就把它升到天上去藏起来。
So there's another story of Venerable Mahamagdhyana's spiritual powers, is that, I don't know if people know this story about King Crystal. His name was King Brudaka. And what happened was, he actually attacked the Shakya clan. The Buddha's clan was the Shakya clan. And so because, we won't go into the backstory, but he was very upset, you could say, with the Shakya clan. So he led a huge army to massacre the entire clan. And so Venerable Mahamagdhyana was very compassionate, trying to save some of the Shakya clan. And so he got his bull and he made it really big, and he put in 500 of the Shakya clan members. So you can imagine, it's a very interesting story. And he brought the bull all the way into the heavens to protect them.
但是因为业力的关系，所以他等到事情过以后，打开一看，所有都变成血水，然后他跑去问佛陀，佛陀说这个是释迦族的这个因果的关系，所以业力就也是抵不过神通抵不过业力的。
Yeah. So, but however, after the massacre, Venerable Mahamagdhyana went to take down the bull, and he looked in the bull, and inside the bull it was just you could say a lot of blood, and so all the clan members died in the bull, and so he asked the Buddha, what happened? Why did this happen? And the Buddha told him, this is because of the karma from the past. It was coming as a retribution. And so in this story you can see that still, although you have spiritual powers can't overcome karma. You can say the actions that we've done in the past and the results that we get from it. So in this story, just give a little bit of backstory so people know the karmic consequence, was because at that time in the past, the Shakya clan actually used to be another clan that actually killed and ate a school of fish. And so because of that, later the school of fish actually was reborn as this King Crystal and the clan, and then they came and massacred the Shakya clan. So there's more to the story, but that's kind of a little bit you can see the causal consequences of our actions.
对金传师也解释了这个他们释迦族那时候他是就是杀鱼的业力的，所以这个就一个业报，所以这个是他解释了。另外目犍连还有一个就是他显神通因为那时的一个故事是僧团里面那时候有人生病，那就目犍连想起那时候的名医就是奇婆，但是奇婆他已经是往生了，他升到天上去，所以他就用神通去天上去见奇婆，但是奇婆那时候到天上是非常快乐的，所以他看到目犍连去，就他们都在玩乐，跟着马车这样子，那一些天女就跟着就跑，就没有去理会这个目犍连。目犍连他就看到这样子，看到这个讲师兄怎么他都没有来打招呼，也不停下来，他就用神通把他的这个马车就把它停下来了。
So here's another story. So I got a lot of stories of Mahamagdhyana with his spiritual powers. And so one time there was a very sick bhikshu, a very sick monk. And so Venerable Mahamagdhyana tried to help him and went to look for a really, really good doctor named Chi-po. But the thing is, with this doctor, he actually had already passed away. And so he went off to rebirth and was reborn in the heavens. So Venerable Mahamagdhyana went to go visit this doctor in the heavens. And so when he went to visit the doctor, this Dr. Chi-po was very happy, having a lot of fun in the heavens. He has on his maybe matza, so kind of like a chariot. Maybe he has got his own car, he's got his vehicle, he's driving around, doing whatever he wanted to do. Got a lot of goddesses all around, You can think of he was really enjoying himself. And so he didn't even pay any attention to Venerable Mahamagdhyana. He didn't even greet his friend. So Venerable Mahamagdhyana saw the situation and essentially used his spiritual powers and just causes his car to stop working or his chariot stop moving forward. And so he really got Chi-po's attention.
那目犍连跟他阻挡以后，他下来，然后还是跟他问说什么事情？他说我们僧团里面有比丘生病，生病要怎样子来治疗？他讲了一个，就是给我们很重要的一句话，就是以减食为治疗。减食就是说，可能就是我们吃的太好，包括我们伯克利这边都吃的那么好，这样子不是很好对身体，所以这个是给我们修行人非常很好的一个忠告，以减食为治疗的一个很简单的方法。
So they went to, so then the doctor came down to take a look, see what's going on. Saw Venerable Mahamagdhyana and said, "Oh, why are you here?" He said, "Well, I'm here because in the Sangha we have a bhikshu who's really sick and he needs to be cured, he needs some help. So what do we need to do?" And so the Dr. Chi-po gave some very good advice. He said, take eating less as medicine. Eating less, or you can be eating simpler. And so this is actually very good advice. Especially here at Berkeley, you can say maybe eat pretty well, maybe too well. And so if we really want to have good health, we can start by eating simpler, eating less. I think that's probably very good advice for modern times for sure. A lot of our times they say sickness comes from the mouth, right? We get sick because of the food we eat. And I think that's probably more true now than before because of the kinds of food we have. So before we go for medicine, it seems like the first thing we should look at is what are we putting in our bodies? So this story is a good, you could say, principle about that. That the first thing we should do is look at our food, see what we can simplify, And maybe we might not need so much, maybe less. Less is often more.
所以像现在我们看到我们的这个社会上很多疾病，尤其是美国，你跟他看比较其他的国家，美国人都胖胖的，即使这个就是讲起来都营养过分了，营养过分。包括现在中国小孩子也是一样，中国因为一胎制，那时候我去大陆，他们都非常宝贝的，都一样的有这个胖的这个肥胖症的这个迹象，这个都其实讲起来都是吃营养过多的过剩。所以我想起来，我们有时候我们在台湾的时候没有东西吃，还比较健康，还大家都还认真工作，大家都没有其他没有什么毛病。像现在是真的毛病很多，很多是癌症啊各方面的，这样这个跟吃都非常有关系的。
So, if you look at our society, let's say here in America, there's a lot of, you could say, health problems that come from eating you could say maybe a standard American diet. They say it's a sad diet, but food that may be not so healthy for us. And so what happens is that there's a lot of people who are overweight. The kind of people are very overweight. Obesity has become a really big problem in our society, in American society. And I remember in China as well, especially because there's a one-child policy, the family would really kind of protect the kid, take care of the kid. And so you kind of have a little, very, I say, not a fat, but a very plump, they say plump, yeah, polite way of saying a plump kid. And so they have their little precious kid, and so it is very plump. So that's not so good either. And then a lot of problems arise. Actually, I remember growing up, when I was a kid in Taiwan, we actually didn't have really enough food to eat. And everyone had to work really hard. But in fact, people seemed to be healthier. We didn't have all the kind of modern diseases like all the cancer and all these kind of things. A lot of that didn't arise. So a lot of it could be coming from the food, a kind of a simpler diet and maybe less. So that was one thing I remember.
还有穆建人，他有时候他会有一次就是想去测这个佛的声音，究竟佛他讲法多远可以听到，所以他就有一次他就去测，然后一直测到很远，这个几个佛土过了以后，往东方一直走，都还可以听到佛陀在讲法。最后他跑到一个东方一个非常远的一个国土，就是大波国去。
So Mahamoggallana, you see, maybe was also very curious. So one time he thought to himself, how far does the Buddha sound go? How far can I go and still hear the Buddha sound? So he used the spiritual powers and traveled east and just kept going. And then when he went to another whole, you could say maybe another world system, he went to another place, and he still could hear the Buddha's sound. So he kept going. And he finally ended up in a place where, what means it?
大波国。
大波国。
国一个国度啦，
It's
另外一个国度。
It's another Buddha land in 大波国. I don't know how to translate that into English. So.
波就是那个我们的波。
Oh, it's like a bowl. It's like a great big bowl. So maybe that was the land. It was called a great big bowl. And so he was there.
那时候大波国是世自在王如来在讲法，他就在那里参加他们的讲法。
So there he saw a Buddha named世自在王, and he was speaking the Dharma. So Venerable Mahamoggallana participated in the Dharma assembly.
所以那大波国人看到那个穆建人 好像小虫一样那么小小，好像小虫，这是人头虫啊。就是讲，怎么有一个人头虫跑来？那因为大波国的人，他就是吃饭很大的那个人，当然很高大的这个，所以看到这个好像小虫一样小小的。
So in this country, they were all much, much bigger than Mahamagayana. So when they looked at him, he looked like a little bug, like a little human bug, just tiny, tiny. And so, there they were all much, much bigger than him.
然后那个大师是自在王如来跟他们的那些讲这个说你不可以小看这个他是释迦牟尼佛的这个大弟子目犍连，他是今天来到这里所以跟他们讲不要轻视他，他是我们的世人的大弟子。
So this other Buddha, this other land, though, told his disciples, "Don't look down on this little being. This is actually a great disciple of a Buddha in another world system. So don't look down on him because he was very small."
所以到目犍连，他那时候他又显神通，把他显一样跟他们一样大的，所以他们就对他也非常尊敬，所以这个也算是给他们了解释迦牟尼佛的大弟子。然后他们显神通完以后，但是他要回来的时候要怎么回来？怎么回来娑婆世界？他不晓得怎么回来。
So at that point, Mahamagayana, he manifested spiritual abilities and also made himself as big as all the other people. And so they all paid him respect, or very respectful to him. But then he didn't know how to get back to our world, our Sopo Sujya, our Saha world. He didn't know how to get back.
所以这个狮子在王如来跟他讲，你只要在意念释迦牟尼佛，你马上意念，你就马上可以回去了。
So this Buddha told him, if you can just remember the Shakyamuni Buddha, then you immediately go back.
像目犍连尊者，他所以有那么好的神通，然后这个世尊也有曾经问他，你是怎么修行能够得到这个正果的
？Because maybe finish the story. So when he remembered Shakyamuni Buddha, he immediately went back to the Saha world. So Venerable Mahamagayana was foremost in spiritual powers. One day, the Buddha asked him, "How did you wake up? How did you get enlightened?"
他就是说你用什么功夫证悟的？那这个目犍连尊者他打的就是说旋转，旋就是回旋的旋，就是旋转的旋，站就是非常近站三点水那个站，这个就是回旋自性，自性常常回光返照，就是显毁自性，使他清净光明，这个就是他开悟的这个方法，修行功夫。
So the Venerable Mahamagayana replied back to the Buddha that he's a spiral back inward to his true nature, the kind of his true nature, his Buddha nature, and with a kind of a perception of this inner light, this kind of radiance, inner radiance. So he kind of spiraled back inward. I don't know how you can imagine. Anybody has a better Chinese? Yeah, so maybe spiral back inwards.
就是还回如来藏性然后使我们的自性清净光明，就是他这个功夫第一这样子。
That was his method to wake up, to become awakened.
然后像 这个目犍连尊者，我们刚才也有提到说，这个他业力的问题，因为他自己过去生到最后他就是被外道就是石头砸死，被裸行外道砸死。那时候他是去讲法回来路上。被外道等他，然后他知道他不必要再躲这个，他要了这个业，所以他就被打死了。这个后来这些外道也被500，就是我看经典上写500外道都被处死。就是。
Okay, so Venerable Mahamoggallana actually, at the end of his life, was murdered. He was coming back, and he was actually stoned to death by 500 adherents of another religious group. He was, you could say, pulverized by rocks. And so he had a very, you could say, difficult ending to his life. And this was because of the karma he created in the past. He knew it was coming, so he wanted to resolve the karmic retribution for that. But later, also those 500 people, I think, actually were beheaded. They had their beheaded for their action.
所以他算弟子里面先往生了，后来他也去。告诉就是舍利弗，然后他也去见了佛陀，因为他们两个都比释迦牟尼佛早入涅槃，他们是很慈悲的，他不忍心看到释迦牟尼佛入涅槃，所以他们两个都比释迦牟尼佛提前入涅槃。
So both Venerable Mahamoggallana and Venerable Shariputra, you could say enter nirvana, or you could say gave up their physical bodies in this world before the Buddha entered nirvana. And so they both, I think the reason is because they didn't want to see the Buddha enter nirvana. And so they entered nirvana first.
还有在《妙法莲华经》上，就是佛陀他受记里面，他有提到目犍连将来是受记成佛，他的佛名是叫做多摩罗跋旃檀香佛，香佛就是多摩罗跋旃檀香如来这个佛名
So also in the Lotus Sutra, Venerable Mahamoggallana is given a prediction for becoming a Buddha. And his name as a Buddha will be Tamanapatra Chandana Gandha Daskaman, or Tathagata. Means fragrance like tamala leaves and sandalwood.
他的那时候的节名是喜满，就是欢喜充满，就是喜满，他的节名。
So the time period, the kalpa at that time would be called Rati Prapurna, filled with joy.
然后他这个佛的寿命总共有24小节。
The lifespan of his time, his life will be 24 small kalpas, which is a long time.
正法有40小节，相法有40小节。
So the proper Dharma age will be 40 small kalpas, and then the Dharma image age will be for another 40 small kalpas. So we got to hear a lot of stories about Venerable Mahamoggallana. As we were saying before, we were hoping to introduce him a little bit about his life. So maybe just give people a kind of an overview of what happened. Right? Venerable Mahamoggallana was born a Brahmin, which is the religious caste in India, a very high caste. And he went out to cultivate with Shariputra. So he's somebody who was able to keep really good friendships, right? He had Venerable Shariputra, and they were really like best friends, supporting each other on the spiritual path. And then when he cultivated, he actually became foremost in spiritual powers. I don't know if people know the list of spiritual powers. If you were to list, anybody know? What's one of them? That's this. You can think of the six sense organs. What would be something? Okay, Michael. Yeah, give me some spiritual powers here. Okay, reading others' thoughts. Okay, that's one. Sen Zhu Tong, a kind of the spiritual power of complete mastery. It's like the Arhat spiritual powers. Flying, that's part of the Sen Zhu Tong, I think. Hearing and everything. Celestial ear. Celestial eye. Anything else? Not touching the ground. I think it probably is also in the Sen Zhu Tong. Sen Zhu Tong has a lot in it. You like the flying one. You got flying and levitating. Yeah? Yeah, Su Ming Tong is remembering past lives. Another one is the spiritual power of the end of outflows. Is it the end of outflows? And of all the spiritual powers in Buddhism, it says the first five are you can find in other spiritual practitioners and ascetic groups, but the particular one, the freedom of outflows, is only within Buddhism. And the freedom of outflows is essentially when somebody becomes a sage, when someone becomes an arhat, they end all the outflows. And when by outflows is kind of the afflictions, the ways that we misuse the mind with greed, hatred, and delusion, which ends up in afflictions. They are able to let those go completely. Yes? When they let go of the outflows? Yeah, no, fourth stage. So the moment you are able to have the spiritual ability of non-outflows, no outflows, then you actually become a fourth stage arhat. You don't have lust anymore, you don't have any anger anymore, you have no delusion. Yeah? The question was, does the stages of arhatship correlate with the dhyanas? Not particularly. The dhyanas are different stages of concentration, which are helpful for the spiritual path, but to actually realize a stage of awakening, it's often related to a different set of qualities, not just the dhyanas. The dhyanas are helpful, but if you're in the fourth, for instance, if you realize fourth dhyana, it doesn't mean that you've realized the first stage of arhatship. Yeah. But so Venerable Mahamanghyana was the foremost in all those spiritual abilities, and we got in this story of him being able to change size and fly off to other worlds. And so he's somebody, it seems like, had a very exciting life. If you had him as a friend, it would be very interesting because you'd have a lot of stories probably. I can remember one story we were talking, because we were translating the Vinaya as a group. We were a small group of bhikshus, and we were translating the Vinaya. And I think one of the stories, they were in a famine, and then the Buddha was talking, and I think Venerable Mahamagdhyana says, well, there's a famine here. How about if I go to another world system and get some food for us? And the Buddha goes, no, you can't do that. How about all those bhikshus who don't have spiritual powers? What do? He says, no problem. I can just bring them along. He says, well, that's still not so good, but how about the bhikshus in the future? And so the Buddha essentially tells them, not a good idea. We should just receive whatever we have now and not, use our spiritual powers for our own benefit. Right? So that's the spirit in the Buddhist tradition, is that the spiritual powers aren't to be used as a way to get fame. They're not a way to use to show off. They're not a way to get offerings. So there's many, many ways that spiritual powers could be misused. And then Buddha was very clear not to misuse them. Right? So it's not like, because he has spiritual powers, that's, like he was really trying to show off. It's that you're supposed to be used to, you could say, help living beings, benefit living beings. Sometimes it inspires faith, right? People see, oh wow, this person has a lot of insight, and they have a kind of a inspiration to study the Dharma, right? And so So that's the underlying spirit for the spiritual abilities, is we don't cultivate them for their own sake. They're cultivated, especially in the Bodhisattva path, in order to help living beings, right? In order to really be of benefit. And ultimately in the Dharma, these spiritual abilities aren't extraordinary, actually. They're actually very ordinary. It's actually just because living beings like us, at least like myself, are confused, and so we don't have these abilities because we've kind of blocked it, we kind of shut it off in our system. You know, we can't really see that clearly, we really can't remember. I mean, our memories have really deteriorated, as an example, with our digital devices, that we really can't remember probably what happened last week, or our friends' phone numbers, or maybe even our parents' phone numbers. You know, things just kind of get lost now without our little device to remind us what's going on. So, you know, so back then, you maybe had a little bit more power of memory, and potentially, if we really cultivate and we let go of all our delusions and attachments, then we can actually go back, maybe even see past lives. So that's what's being described by Venerable Mahamoggallana. So I want to tell one story that I thought was very valuable, just because I think it's very inspiring in Venerable Mahamoggallana's life for us as practitioners. And particularly, Venerable Mahamoggallana, actually just to give an example, when reason Venerable Mahamoggallana got killed by other religious groups at the end of his life was because he actually killed his parents in a previous life. So he was very, as Jin-Fo mentioned, he was very filial in the Ulambana Sutra, but in the past he's also done things that were not so skillful. And so he had to receive the retribution from that. And so he's not, so the Buddha's disciples, they didn't all live perfect lives in the past. Right? Just like us as practitioners, we're all not all that perfect. But if we cultivate step by step, one day we can wake up. But this story I think is very fun because it talks about Mara and kind of this interesting relationship. So before Venerable Mahamoggallana passes away, he actually, I think, pretty close to the end of his life, Mara. If people know Mara, Mara is the kind of they sometimes call him the evil one, the one who is always kind of trying to go against the Buddha, right? At the very end, before the Buddha becomes awakened, Mara comes and tests him, or tries to prevent the Buddha from waking up. He sends his demonic armies to scare the Buddha. He sends his daughters to come entice and seduce the Buddha. And the Buddha during those times were completely unmoved, right? He just saw the armies come, and there was no fear. Saw the girls coming to seduce him, and no lust. His mind didn't move, and so he, you could say, passed the test. Mara couldn't move him, and so Mara is just always trying to go against the Buddha, always trying to find ways to prevent the Dharma from going out, because he wants living beings to be trapped in our senses, trapped in samsara, because this is his domain of mastery. And so if he loses, somebody to the Dharma, then it's almost like he loses one of his entourage. So they actually describe when we become monks, we leave the Mara's, kind of a domain, and we're trying to follow the Buddha's path. Or we're leaving the realm of the senses and going to transcend. Okay, so this story has Mahamoggallana there, and he's meditating, and then he has this kind of stomach ache. So it's a very interesting stomach ache because Mara causes stomach ache. Mara went into his body and gave him a stomach ache. Okay, so it's very kind of visceral. You can kind of feel it. And so what happens is Mahamoggallana takes a look. What's going on? And he sees Mara in his body. And so he tells Mara, "Mara, I see you. Get out." And Mara, in his mind, goes, "No way. He doesn't know I'm here. Not even the Buddha could figure out I'm here so fast. It's impossible." And then Mahamoggallana goes, "Mara, get out. I know you're thinking. I do not know you're there. That even the Buddha doesn't know you're there that fast. But I know you're there, so get out." So Mara gets out of his body and hides in the corner, right? And he says, "Mara, I know you're there, standing in the corner." He says, "No, he can't see me. I'm still invisible. He can't see me." He goes, "No, I know you're there." And then he says something very interesting. This is one of the suttas, in the suttas. He says, Mara, you better watch out, because you know what? You know how do I say it? I actually used to be a Mara. I can't get his name right. I used to be a Mara under Kakusanda Buddha. It was just the first Buddha of our eon, the worthy eon, our Kalpa. He says, under that Buddha, I was a Mara named Dushin. And in that time, I actually caused that Buddha a lot of problems, to the point I finally took possession of a boy. I possessed a boy and caused him to throw something at one of the foremost disciples, Vidura and Sanjiva, so that it actually hit the disciple and caused his disciple's head to bleed. And then the Buddha looked at the Mara at that time, which was Dushin, Mara Dushin, which was Mahamagdhyana's past life. It says, Mara, you overstepped yourself. That's just too much. And then at that point, the karmic consequences of what he's done, trying to, to disturb the Buddha, and actually his act of, actually drawing blood and splitting open breaking open one of the disciples' heads, caused him to fall into the deepest hells, right? So he had to suffer there for a long, long period of time. So he said, yeah, at that time I had a sister named Kali, and you were her son. So I'm your uncle. So this Mara of that age was his nephew. So it's like he's meeting his uncle. So you better watch out, because I, after that, had to suffer a long time in the hells. And I finally got out, I cultivated, and now, I'm completely liberated from suffering. But I see in your future, you've got a lot ahead of you, so you better watch out. So I thought it was a very interesting sutta, because it's completely unexpected. All of a sudden, Mara comes, and this foremost disciple actually says, I'm actually your uncle. We just came to the monastery today, all these families came, with their parents bringing their little kids, and they're bowing, things very nice. And so you can see this family relationship. And so it's like, wow, Mara's getting scolded by his uncle, who's now a disciple of the Buddha, and who's actually an arhat. But even more interesting for me is actually this idea of what Mara is in the Buddhist tradition. In the West, we have the Christianity, and has Satan. And Satan often is seen as the evil one as well, right? But kind of like the embodiment of evil, and is completely beyond saving, right? He's completely beyond saving. He fell from the heavens, and is completely beyond saving. And so he's kind of like evil personified, and he can never be redeemed. Right? We don't ever see the opportunity in the Christian tradition that Satan himself can actually be redeemed. He's just seen as a complete evil. And so in the West, sometimes we have this mindset that evil is evil, and you conquer evil by destroying evil with the good. Right? There's that mindset that we get throughout Western history. You can kind of see the Crusades, or even just in the way that we talk about evil. You look at our movies, a lot of our evil, like the evil villains in our superhero movies, have these kind of really evil characters that are like seemingly beyond any redemption. They're just like the embodiment of evil. But in the Buddhist tradition, that's not true. We don't have any evil in that way. Even the most evil being, Mara, actually became Mahamagdhyana, who was, very filial, foremost in spiritual abilities, right? One of the foremost disciples of the Buddha. So it shows that, who in our life is really evil, right? Who in our life is really evil? And so can we not treat them in a bad way and see their potential for awakening? Or perhaps we think of ourselves. Is there anything part of us that we think, well, that's just so evil, I'm just beyond redemption. There's just no hope for me. I'm just so bad, right? That kind of mindset. And so the Buddhist tradition is that actual mindset is not skillful. In fact, there's nothing we can do that's so evil that's quote unquote beyond fixing. It just requires us to be honest with ourselves, take responsibility, and change. and that's it. It's not to dwell in a kind of guiltiness. It's not to beat ourselves up for it. It's just to really cultivate and change for the better, because there's a deeper trust in our potential for awakening. And so I think that's actually very inspiring to know that this path that we're walking on, regardless of whatever we did in the past, we can fix it. We can cultivate and find a way out. So even the most evil being in this universe can actually cultivate and wake up. So that's what I think is really inspiring about Mahamahagayana's life, is that he really lived the kind of whole spectrum of existences, all the way from Mara to a great disciple of the Buddha. And as the Buddha said in the Lotus Sutra, in the future he will become a Buddha himself. He'll be a Buddha name. A long name is Tamanapatra Chandanaganda. Tamanapatra Chandanaganda, Buddha. So in the future, he'll become a Buddha. So, okay. So I hope people had a chance to get a better feeling who Mahamahagayana is. I don't know if there's any questions or thoughts. Or do you have anything more to say? Oh, yeah, you go.
对，讲刚才有提到这个神通，在佛陀时代的时候，他就不同意，就是常常显神通，但是目犍连就是没有跟他讲说你不可以显神通。这个就是像其他的弟子就显神通的话，他因为佛陀的主张就是说，你显神通就是要能够利益众生，然后不为自己。刚才也金传师也讲过了，在显神通的一个弟子就是如头宾如钵，有一个这个就佛陀就很支持他，骂过他，甚至于给他有制裁。这个等下面我们也会讲到他的故事，我们以后再讲他的故事。
Okay, so this principle of spiritual powers is, I think, I mentioned a moment ago, was you don't show off. It's not something we're showing off. It's for benefiting living beings. And then Buddha actually, you could say, corrected some of the disciples who were using it to show off or for personal benefit, but he didn't, scold Mahamahagayana. And so this other disciple named
Bintolu.
Bintolu, I'm not sure which one. Bintolu, he actually was scolded by the Buddha for showing off his spiritual powers. And so we'll talk about him later because he's also on the list of disciples.
所以还有一个观点就是说，我们修行人要非常注意，就是说你修行到一种程度的话，人家讲的就是道高一丈，道高一尺，魔高一丈，就是你修到一种时候，另外他还会再来考你，这个就是讲起来就是一种考验。魔其实我们依照《楞严经》上，魔有很多种，从自心的魔，然后还有外道天魔，那些都有。它这个都是一种考，对我们修行人都是在考试的，所以也不用怕。遇到这个魔考的时候，绝对不能够心慌。上人讲的，你就自然来，自然它就会走，这样子的应付。所以这个魔不必要怕。
So there's also a saying in Buddhism about when we progress in our practice and our spiritual growth, that as our practice, our spiritual skill increases, you could say a level, the demons and the maras grow. I think it says if your spiritual skill grows an inch, the demonic forces grow a foot, something like that, right? In the translation. And so the reason is not to scare you, it's to say that when you progress on the spiritual path, we'll often get tested. And when we say demons, like Mara, they come and test us for as we progress. But in like the Shrangma Sutra says, there's also maras that are outside and maras that are inside, kind of our own inner demons, you could say. And that kind of test us when we really make a resolve to cultivate. But what's important is that we take it as a test. We don't have any fear. We don't lose our kind of wits. We stay level-headed and clear, and we just take it as a test and do our best. Because if we, lose our mindfulness, then it's easy to go off path, go off track. So the way that we can treat it is if we can just cultivate with a steady, peaceful mind and not get moved by our inner and outer demons, that's the best.
好，后面我们还有再10几分钟就到9点钟，我想给大家看一下那个我在12月10号到1月10号在台湾我想也看一下在台湾的情况。我去过台中、台北、台中，然后高雄，我们的道场，在那里做地藏法会，高雄，然后台中刚好那个楞严法会的最后圆满日108天的圆满日，台中他们都有跟着一起在诵楞严咒的，还有在那里我在2个礼拜也跟他们一起来在念佛共修，所以给大家看一下。还有，因为我20年没有回去台湾，所以看一下台湾的变化很大。台湾是变得比以前更漂亮，然后它规划高楼大厦起来，然后规划都蛮不错的。其实讲起来，因为我那时候就是10月、11月、12月、1月算冬天，冬天那边都还是绿油油的，所以1年4季都是绿的。讲起来看起来，我现在看到昨天去那个海维那边，就路过就觉得还是台湾漂亮台湾绿油油的。
绿油油是不是
？All year green.
All year green.
所以我觉得台湾蛮漂亮的，真的是讲宝岛 Formosa 是真的。
Okay, so we have a little bit more time. Jin-Fo wanted to share some of the pictures that he has from the recent trip to Taiwan. He was there for a month in December and the beginning of January. And he went to our various way places in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung. And so there they had different Dharma assemblies. They recited the Earth Store Sutra, the Shrangma Mantra, and the Buddha's name. And Jin-Fo actually hasn't gone back to Taiwan for about 20 years. And so he said, wow, Taiwan changed a lot in 20 years. It's really different. But he says, but he feels it's even more beautiful than before. It's more beautiful than before. He thought that the way that things were planned out, the city was built out, was quite well done, was not too bad. And that the environment was green. It was very green all year round. That's because it's tropical weather. It's a tropical country. Says he was even here, in California, going down to our Santa Cruz area. He felt it wasn't as beautiful as Taiwan. So he wanted to show people some pictures. Okay. So if you get a chance to see Taiwan or Asia, if you haven't seen it, your microphone? Okay. Can you come down a little bit more? Yeah, a little more. Might be a little bit more. Okay. Good.
我们先看一下这个图片，这个就是台中的道场，这个是高雄的。高雄在那里做地藏法会，有能法师，慢一点可以吗
？Here, let me， 你要把那个关掉。Can you close that? Okay, good. Okay， 回去吗？
好，
你要怎么来？那个 Mr. Yap， 这个 slideshow 怎么弄 ？How do I go back? Stop. Exit. Oh, exit. Okay. 这个 This one here 开始这边。Okay. 这个 OK。OK， 你就按这个，你要也就用这个按。OK。So this is Taiwan.
No， 这个是 Highway 9。
This is Highway 9.
这个是 Highway 9的，我们在那里也看一下，这个是我们 BBM 石法师的亲戚来的这个。
This is Ramhengshir's family.
这个是在金圣寺，我们去做三归五戒。这个 Highway 9的这个天空好像龙出现，常常会有这个。这个是台湾的怎么停止？这个台湾的这个圆通寺。这个是果清律师的道场，这个好，等一下可以，这个是
我说你不要让他自己跑，就是你让他自己弄就比较好一点。OK，
都可以了。
OK， 好了。OK， 看这个 arrow 就可以了。
这个就是我们能法师在新庄那边的，去跟他请法去高雄，然后他这个算佛殿。
That's the Buddha Hall。
这个是台中的这个我们台中分会的这个是高雄。
台中是高雄。
那这个现在是在高雄做。
高雄是 South。
这个是。也是高雄，我们在那里做地藏法会的这个，在那里我能法师，能法师在做点燃香。
Looks like he's in a lot of pain. Looks like Jin-Fo 痛不痛？
痛。然后这个是就是讲完了我们的团体照这个，然后这个在那里有照了一个上人的。
This is Mural Master's image.
这个是台湾我们家乡我们自己的香蕉园，还有这个就是我们的古树，就是古的地方。现在你看，
是你的家人啊？
家人
就是Jin-Fo师的 thing。
然后这个怎么停一下跟着，
你就按 arrow 就可以了，还在跑自己跑。
这个好，这个是葡萄树，刚才讲的。
你怎么还是这样子跑来跑去 ？Sorry。
好了，没关系了，你做好了，我讲。
OK， 你讲我。
这个就是我们的那个在嘉义是很多的这个橘子 orange 的场地，在下面这个葡萄树，葡萄长在树上
，This grapes growing on the tree。
可以一楼。葡萄树可以很甜的。
Very
这个
sweet。
刚才还有下一张。
Okay, here. Okay, I don't know how this works, but here you go.
耶，这个可以看到比较大的，这个是它现在还不能吃，要等到就是要蓝色的时候，
Because it has become blue.
那这个是我们自己自己家里的这个，我们家里有经营这个游览中心，像这个是我们嘉义的地方，这是很漂亮的地方。
Jin-Fo's home, very beautiful.
有看到槟榔树，所以嘉义有槟榔。
就是槟榔树 I think it's some kind of.
那我们的家是在巴掌溪旁边。巴掌溪是嘉义的。这个是台中的台中道场的这个一个他们维诺的。
这是台中。
台中分会的。
They don't have very many monks there. 这是台中。
台中分会的。
台中是 the center of Taiwan.
台中对啊，台中。
Yeah, I'm just letting people know because people might not know where Taiwan is.
在台中，这个是看清贤师他要做征服，清贤师不在，他做征服，我去看做征服的吉祥征服，专门做我们圣人，这个就是征服的老板。做征服就是做的。
清贤师 ordinations coming up
因为
next year, so
他的
this year and in August.
这个就是无风庙，我们家隔壁无风庙，我们住在无风庙那里。这个就是要去阿里山的中间，从嘉义市差不多12分钟就到了。
That was Wufeng. I want to show people to explain English. So this is the Sangha clothing place. The reason was because Jin-Fo when he went there, he was asked to get some clothing that would fit Qingxianshi. Qingxianshi is a little bit bigger than your average Taiwan or Asian person.
对，所以那个如来是没有他的 size。
He has no size that fits him.
这个就是老板，他们做的。
They make the clothing.
这个是无凤庙，这个是很有名的，在台湾我们以前到现在都还是有的。
temple in Taiwan. Oh, that's you.
OK， 这个在高雄我们要在那讲法，范法师讲法，然后大家要轮流讲，就是赞法师都有讲。这个就是在听法，高雄分会在那里。
Take a picture of the computer screen. This is Kaohsiung pictures of them speaking Dharma.
OK， 我这个Highway 9，我看差不多没有了。
That's Highway 9 again. OK， 就这样子了。OK，the end。
差不多5分钟了，好了。
OK，是这样子吗？
是还有其他的，
你要给他们看这个吗 ？Video。
好啊，看
哪一个？
我们
You want to see a video? Jin-Fo's videos here. 这个？
这个无缝这个。
Okay. Now we get to see a movie. Jin-Fo as movie director.
这个我们家乡这是里面的，看一下它这个这个很古老的，它是3级古迹列为。
It's a very old place. Gosh, it's so beautiful. Can't close it. He was a hero. So they say there's a hero. I need to close this for you next time. So this is a very famous temple in Taiwan. There you go. Oh, are those the workers there? Okay. 这样子咯，还是有。
这个北回归线，这个北回归线在嘉义市，我们都知道北回归线。
怎么这么短？
很快的，这个看可以 stop。这个北回归线标志。
OK。
这个北回 也这个北回归线啊，就是经过嘉义那里，这个是这对啊，知道。
Oh, this is a line of the tropical and subtropical. So south of that's the tropical area. Okay.
OK 好了。
OK.
然后再看一下有这个，太小了看不清楚。
Can't see it. You want to make it bigger? Thank you for your patience. There. OK. 看到吗？
我们看一下我们读
calligraphy class.
OK 中文呢，看一下我们。
What's this?
我们的中文课。
This is us learning Chinese here in Berkeley BM. This is advertising for a Chinese class here. You want?
And then coming over, so there's many places that go over, right? So all those places everywhere,
She's saying that the Buddhas come from very far places to come over to here. That's our incense praise. You should explain the incense praise. Buddhas from far away come over here with our incense praise. So that's what we're doing, right? When we do the incense praise. 还有吗? Okay.
我们再看一下我们。
Okay, 哪一个？这个。哪一个？台湾高雄。
我们清洁好了。
Okay, this is everyone coming to cleaning together. This is last week. People cleaning.
Couple yesterday, right?
Not yesterday. Last week. 上个礼拜。清理佛殿. That's everyone cleaning last week for Chinese New Year. This is today. Yeah, so these are more cleaning. It looks like. Yeah.
看一下那边他们的。
Okay, this is in Taichung. Their garment. Okay, 就这样子了。Okay, so that's Jin-Fo trip to Taiwan and Highway 9 and in BBM. Okay, so maybe we can make a couple of announcements. I think our regular schedule will be starting next week. Next week we'll be starting our regular. So Monday we won't have Buddhism for the Modern Mind, but our Wednesday class with Stephen Tainers is ongoing. Thursday night with Spirit Rock or the East Bay Insight Meditation. Friday, Professor Verhoeven's class on the Sixth Patriarch Sutra will be continuing Friday night. Saturday we have a regular Sutra lecture. So if people are interested in joining in, please do. Anything else happening? Will there be a Buddha recitation next week? Not yet. I think maybe next week we might have also a one-day Buddha recitation. That's in February. So not tomorrow, but next week. Okay, otherwise, hope people have a... So February 5th, we'll have a one-day Buddha recitation. We're going to do the dedication of merit. So we have to do our final dedication of merit. Our final dedication of merit from our evening lecture. So people who need it, maybe you can pass out the sheet in the back. 有没有那个张纸吗？如果你需要。Yeah, behind you, I think, has some, if you need it. The dedication of merit is on the... Okay, 可以看一下。 this in the back, it says dedication of merit. And this is one way we share the goodness from studying the Dharma together, learning the Dharma at night. Many people came out on Lunar New Year to listen to the Dharma, so that's very precious. People spend the Lunar New Year in the monastery. So we can send out that goodness to other living beings who are in sorrow or suffering, or even if they're happy, wishing that they'll ultimately find the true happiness in cultivating the way and ending all potentials for suffering. So if we bring our hearts and minds together and be sincere, we can dedicate the merit. Okay? May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hand and heart can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, we can all please stand and bow to the Buddhas. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master.